Hey, we're live. Okay. So, go ahead and post this shit in the chat. Wait for it. Yeah, okay. So,
Not a lot to talk about today.
yeah. This is a weird week. Uh, we're just gonna sort of we had three matches that didn't even get played. So, and I think for the most part, the ones that did get played are like pretty straightforward. Which, uh, I guess not all of them, but there's actually even though there's not a lot of matches that got played, there's actually more movement in the power
Yeah,
rankings
than we have
than
seen.
yeah, especially this late in the season. So
Mm.
that's interesting at least. But part of that is kind of just because like at some point we have to start punishing people for forfeit wins or
Yeah,
losses.
exactly.
So um, anyway, let's just jump into it. Week 9 results. We took a forfeit win against the Wet and Wild Whalelords. That's it. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to say about that.
Next one is the Delibirds and the Cheek Drillers. Did you want to take this one?
Yeah, this one was one of the better ones that were on the docket, definitely in the scheduling. The Delibirds and the Cheek Drillers have been doing a great job this year, or this season, I should say. The Delibirds came out with the War Turtle Entei kind of lead there. They went for like a Calm Mind special Entei, and then the Cheek Drillers went for probably one of the reasons why they have the two redirectors, but the Pikachu Blastoise mode allowed them to set up a Shell Smash and then get kind of get going a little bit on then. They didn't max the Blastoise. They just started launching the Water Spouts right then. There was a couple of turns where the what's it called, the War Turtle was playing a little bit more passive. I believe Entei went for two Calm Minds in a row, and then War Turtle was just going for Icy Winds, trying to get the Blastoise down to neutral. But man, that Blastoise is just doing so much damage. I think to Entei with Pasho Berry at +1, the Water Spout still did like 75%.
Oh yeah,
You know, like it
yeah,
just ridiculous amounts, spread damage and all that stuff, and it still did like 75%. And they had to max it essentially to just keep it alive.
yeah.
Because they were threatening that much pressure. They had to get the max. They had to get the Blastoise down to neutral so they can outspeed it. Then max so they can get the max flare up. And after that, they still ended up going down to it because the Aerodactyl had came in at that point. It was able to max, launch the max airstream at the Comfey, and then allow the Blastoise to outspeed it and just go for another big water spout there. But yeah, I mean, ultimately this was a very well played game, I think, by the Drillers. They they saw that a good water type just could kind of go through the team a little bit
Yeah.
because they were really weak to everything they had got hit neutrally by water and then ice. Right, so we didn't see
Yeah.
an ice move come out from Blastoise, but I assume they probably had like Ice Beam for the Moltres or something like that.
And Virizion even more so than
Virizion
that.
too, yeah. Um, and then, but then also choosing not to max it. They went for the
Yeah.
Aerodactyl max,
Yeah.
which I thought was fantastic. Like when I saw it, I was like, oh, yep, you just airstream here. Now you can get rid of the weather, and it's good to go. So, yeah, the triage, forgetting the triage definitely did suck.
I think Entei dies anyway.
I think Entei dies anyway. Yeah, and more so, maybe what happens is they big time kind of like try and burn down the Entei slot instead of going into the airstream onto the Comfey slot that turn. So maybe like a max rockfall or max airstream plus the water spout double into the Entei. Even if you get the triage up, it's not gonna save it. So. I think it was just a really, really good prep in general by the Drillers here. They kind of made up for the blunder that they made against the Raiders that kind of threw away the game essentially for
Yeah.
them. So by this time, continuing to keep the pressure on and just ended up finishing off the game. That's how you have to do it there. You can't. I mean, you have to. Goomer says, I really don't think it dies at that range. It doesn't die to just water spout in sun straight up, but at that point, they they still are able to go into the Entei with the Max Aerodactyl, and they can take care of it there. So Max Aerodactyl plus Water Spout just knocks it out, and the Comfey doesn't really do anything after.
Even if you kill the Comfey first, then you're making it a single target Water Spout too. Yeah, I'd have to go back and look to see more specifically like what the damage looked like. I mean the Delibirds did record, so we could actually go back and look at the HP numbers even if we wanted to. But I remember as I was watching the game, I got the sense that the Entei would have died anyway. So, anything more to say on that one?
No, I mean the Aerodactyl was a really good way to kind of adjust, I think, because they didn't rely on the Blastoise. Actually, I think the Blastoise only got maybe 1 or 2 kills. Didn't really do a lot. The Aerodactyl was the one that was able to get 3. And having the dual wing beat on the Virizion, continuing to put pressure down, getting rid of the weather. I think those were really the main things that contributed to the victory. Particularly the Airstream when the Rotom switched in.
Mm-hmm. That was nice. Yeah.
So that way they could continue to outspeed, and then they nasty plotted up, and then after that it was just the Airstream plus the nasty plot. That's really what cleaned it up at that point, because they were able to really easily go in for the Leaf Storm, and then after that they just kind of cleaned it up. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the result is probably the same. Not necessarily the differential, maybe. I think the differential depends a lot on whether Entei does actually survive there after getting healed a little bit. But yeah, with the smaller percentage of healing on Dynamax Pokemon, the single target, I felt like it probably would have died anyway. But it's up for debate for sure. Next is the Mediocre Mudkips versus the Dark Web Porygons. This was another one of our forfeits. The Mudkips took the automatic 3-0 win against the Porygons, and that's that. Yeah, I think Goomer says Pikachu Blastoise was something we originally prepped for, but we felt like it was a good and obvious lead, kind of like Comfey Moltres. Yeah, I think what bugged me a little bit about your matchup against Blastoise next to either of the redirectors is that like it felt to me like obviously the going for a setup fire type in the face of a Shell Smash Blastoise is not generally a great idea, and it just felt to me like you guys didn't really have a way to adjust for a Shell Smash lead, which is a little bit odd considering that's one of the one of the main modes that they're able to go for, right?
That they can go for, but I think it says a lot because they haven't gone for it at all this year. When you go back and look at the tape, I mean, we ran Volcarona Blastoise last season, and it was one thing that we literally didn't do it till the playoffs, and then we did it the whole time during the playoffs, essentially, which was we had the opportunity to go for Follow Me, Shell Smash, or Follow Me, Quiver Dance, or Rage Powder, Shell Smash at any point. And I think because of the fact that the Drillers never brought it, they never showed it, they consistently had other things that they wanted to pull off, it kind of leads you into this false sense of security where it's like they haven't been running it. Yeah, they could do it, but why would they choose to do it here when they haven't really had the opportunity to do it? Especially when you consider that their main redirector is Wartortle. Wartortle always comes. So that would be my biggest issue is dude, we're gonna max this Blastoise here. Preferably I'd like to max or have the option to max it. Not being able to get through their redirector is gonna be a big no for me. Mm-hmm. So I understand the mindset of being they're probably not gonna bring that. But have the I get your point too. Have the flow chart ready. You know. When they do bring it, it's oh, shoot, they did bring it. Okay, let's work around it, a little bit.
So moving on to the Raiders and Potatoes, the last match we have for Sword Division here. This one was a bit of an upset, even though the Potatoes have sort of been not doing as well as we thought they might, especially with the team that they have. But the Raiders, I think they've now shown that maybe this is them kind of turning over a new leaf.
Yeah.
They actually had a really good lead against the Potatoes team. They led with the Thwacky and the Thievel. The Thwacky just being really good at hitting most things on the Potatoes team, especially with the Choice Band, and then the Thievel is really good into Metagross leads because you're getting specifically since you have the Grassy Seed, you're getting +1 defense, and super fast foul play is going to be really good against basically any Metagross. It might have been a little bit awkward if they brought a weakness policy Metagross, but yeah, that lead just put the Potatoes on the back foot immediately. They double switched out, and they took a Choice Band Woodhammer and a foul play. They took more than half on both their Pokemon, and then they took KOs on both of them, and even the Grimmsnarl came out and just died immediately to a Choice Band Woodhammer. They spent like 2 or 3 turns just eating KOs and not doing any damage back except for the Woodhammer recoil.
Yeah.
It was a terrible start for them.
Yeah.
And the only way they were able to claw themselves back a little bit was with the Dynamax Metagross in the late game, but even then they didn't even get like 2 max moves off.
No, they couldn't.
They just the Dynamax Inteleon came in and like they did take out the Thievel. The Inteleon came in and just hit him with a couple of big max darknesses.
Yeah.
And they just that was it. They just couldn't really do anything. The Rotom Wash was kind of just sitting there, and they preserved the Thwacky to deal with it in the late game, and it just couldn't really do anything. And Thwacky just came in and dealt with it later. There wasn't with after the way that game started. Yeah, the Potatoes they just took so much in turn. Like without the Raiders even Dynamaxing, the Potatoes were just down so much.
They took 2 resisted hits and they still lost over half their health on both Pokemon. Just the kind of offense that they had coming out. This Thievel NDD mode too is really put a couple of these teams into fits as well. I think it's added a really nice dimension onto their team in general. Makes it so that way you have to prep for multiple things besides the Colossal.
Yeah.
And I think more importantly, it's allowing them to slow some of these teams down. You know, with the really defensive lead, and it's not super defensive either. I think that's a good thing because it has the opportunity to fake Tears plus Expanding Force.
Yeah.
Which can still be really offensive in certain situations. But also the really fast snarls, really fast foul plays, really fast taunts and things of that nature. Like it can all be really, really good just in the end. It's a good little package that Thievel has, and I think it fits well on the team, and they've been using it really well. So
yeah, the Potatoes just their lead was just it seemed like it was completely unprepared for Thievel stuff or for Psychic Terrain really. I could see why they might want to use Trick Eject button, like if they're really banking on a Colossal lead. Maybe your Grimmsnarl is faster than the Metagross, and the Metagross has Bullet Punch. Like that's, and we don't even know if that's what they did. But I just with the Grimmsnarl just had Foul Play and Spirit Break. And Spirit Break, that's okay if you're expecting an like Indeedee and Psychic Seed on the Thievel. But then you also have you have Scary Face and Trick, which you don't.
Makes it tough in Psychic Terrain, especially when you don't have a way yourself to overturn the terrain.
Right. This is not the Grimmsnarl that you wanted to bring this week. So, I think the Raiders had a good lead, Potatoes had a bad lead, and both of those combined just to make a huge fucking mess for the Potatoes.
Yeah.
And they took a real early lead without even maxing. So usually if you take an early lead with a Dynamax and then your opponent can kind of come back with like a mid to late game Dynamax, but like if you take a lead like that when you're still on a level playing field in terms of Dynamaxing, that's really rough, man. Raiders took a good game off the Potatoes there. Moving into Shield Division, we've got the St. Louis Bulus versus the Rural Jurors. This one started out with the Jurors taking a more of a Trick Room approach. They went with Trick Room Jellicent next to the Follow Me Raichu. The Bulus led with the Grassy Seed Drifloon for the first time, I believe, and next to the Rillaboom, of course. And they went for baton pass U-turn out to adjust into a more Trick Room friendly matchup. I believe they brought in the Togetic and the Reuniclus, not Runerigus. And I think the part of the issue here was that the Jurors were not able to get their Dragalge in soon enough, so it didn't have enough Trick Room turns to really take advantage of that and really sweep the way that they wanted to. It still did good work, but it didn't do as much damage as I think they wanted it to. And by the time Trick Room was over, the Drifloon came back out, and it set up a Tailwind real quick, and then Heatran and Nidoqueen and Tailwind were just way too difficult for the Jurors to deal with, which, given the team matchup, I think makes a whole lot of sense. So that's the Drifloon of all things, I think, ended up saving them. So props to the Bulus for identifying that. Good shit.
Next was Doesn't Click versus the Pixies. This one was a little bit interesting because we saw a Ditto Pyukumuku lead from the Pixies there, and then a very standard lead from Doesn't Click. They just went for the Dragapult Urshifu stuff. And the Ditto was able to get into the Dragapult slot, was able to to turn into the Dragapult, immediately revealing their moveset too, which I think was key later on in the line because they were able to set up Reflect. Like, they had the choice of what they wanted to set up, and they went with Reflect. Mainly, I think, because they had already known the Dragapult, how they was out on the field. And it was when the Dragapult was maxed, so I think it was really key that they nailed that.
Yeah.
Being able to go for the Phantom Force and kind of bait the Wicked Blow into that slot and continue to do that to the Urshifu was really cool for them to kind of keep the sail or take the wind out of the sails out of Doesn't Click, because that lead was going to be very tough for them to overcome just overall, especially if they led with something like Palkia or anything like that, where it could just easily get taken down by a double up, especially knowing Palkia can't Dynamax. So I think all those kind of made it seem like Ty and Nick understood, hey, we have to bring something a little bit crazy here, and the Pyukumuku Ditto was what they decided. The Pyukumuku didn't really do much; it just went for a bunch of helping hands.
It tried to counter, it tried to pain split,
But it was mainly just, I think it went for 4 helping hands when it was out there on the field or something like that. It was just continually clicking that. But yeah, I think overall it came down to what we had been talking about. When does Mudsdale come out in Dynamax and allow them to put offense on the field? And that's what happened. The Mudsdale came out, it Dynamax, started putting down offense on the field. The Dragapult ended up Dynamaxing to kind of counteract that and slow down their offense. I thought in general it was a well played game up to that point. But one of the main things that kind of happened was once they got rid of once they got rid of the Mudsdale, but once the Dynamax was over, the Mudsdale had to be switched out. They continued to just keep the pressure down on it the whole time. To the point where Seismitoad and Decidueye were able to come in and continue to keep pressure down. 2 Pokemon that you really don't think these are going to really...
Seismitoad and Decidueye, let's go!
Here's the offensive pressure.
Yeah.
One of the things that did happen was... I don't know if it would have knocked out... we didn't see the item, but the Palkia missed a Spatial Rend onto the Seismitoad. The Seismitoad was about 75%. So...
It was also Assault Vest. I don't think it mattered.
See... Yeah, so I don't know how much it would have mattered. I didn't know that it was Assault Vest, so I was kind of just going off of just regular calcs there. But yeah, that might have saved the KO onto the Mudsdale. But even then, the Decidueye just can knock it out the next turn after that. It's I don't know how much it would have mattered in general. It was heartbreaking because you want to see Palkia do something, but was there enough? And then they called the Palkia going into the Decidueye that turn. So that kind of left it even more open and invulnerable. It was just a tough spot after the max from the Mudsdale died out.
Right. And they weren't really able to get enough out of the Mudsdale.
Yeah.
Because the Klefki just came in. Usually, they do the self-swagger stuff, and I'm pretty sure they had own tempo here, too, because I know the Mudsdale took a Wicked Blow, and it didn't activate Stamina, so... And there's really no reason to run Inner Focus. I'm sure it had the own tempo stuff, but the Klefki came in, set up a Reflect, and and Doesn't Click, like I said last time, I think Doesn't Click's probably going to know that this is kind of their bread and butter, the self swagger stuff. And Doesn't Click just doubled down the clef key immediately, I think, with a Max Phantasm in close combat, and just knocked it out, so they weren't able to swagger at all. So that was a great decision by them.
And then Wormwinding at turn 1 too.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So I think that's a big part of what Doesn't Click the game there is not letting them do that stuff that's been successful for them. And also I don't really know what the plan was with the Pyukumuku on the Pixies side. It kind of seemed like they were just trying to bullshit with counter a little bit, but like I don't think Doesn't Click is the team that you want to try to pull one over on with that kind of stuff.
Especially, I think because counter is on Pyukumuku, it doesn't work, and the reason why is because typically what you want to do with Pyukumuku, if you know anything about it, is you don't want to one-shot it. You want to chip it down little by little, get it to about 30-40%, and then knock it out at that point. So you're taking minimal amount of damage from innards out.
That's assuming it has innards out, because you do also have to respect the unaware.
Yeah, that's true too. But you know, that's more of how you want to take it down, in my opinion, is to not really try and knock it out in one hit.
Yeah.
And
which is kind of what they did too.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what I think hampered their momentum and their positioning. Pyukumuku was just sitting out on the field, and Doesn't Click was ignoring it, and it couldn't do anything if it wasn't getting hit. So they were just hitting the other side, and you know, it was almost like a 2v1 while Pyukumuku was out on the field.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that one was a good one. Doesn't Click ended up taking that one. It was just going to be really tough in general once they were able to mitigate the damage that Mudsail was going to do. After that, we had another good one right here in the Geezers versus the Matts. The Matts ended up taking it in general. I felt that they were kind of in control the whole game, mainly because, I mean, we saw the coughing Regigeezers lead coming out from the Geezers versus the Cart Gengar lead, and the Regigeezers was only able to pick up 1 KO, only got off 2 max moves, had to max guard on the 3rd turn, and after that, the coughing was already knocked out on the field, and just really wasn't able to do anything after that. Once the Haxorus maxed, it just really started putting down so much pressure onto them. They went for the max knuckle to kind of chip down the Regigigas a little bit, and then or to knock out the Regigigas. I'm sorry. And then that following turn, they switched in Salamence on Volcanion on the free switch, baiting out a max ground maybe coming from their Dynamax Haxorus, and they swapped in the Salamence, and they ended up winning into the slot, which was the safe play. I think
that was the optimal play, especially because you were already +1, so +1 Wormwood's going to do a fuck ton of damage anyway.
Exactly. So I think you definitely end up going for that no matter what, but it was tough because I think if you're the Geezers, you also understand that that's probably your best play too. To send out the Volcanion, know that you really can't do anything with it, but maybe you can bait out a Max Quake to slow down their momentum. And the Mats are never, I don't want to say they're never going to, it's hard to do that against 2 really good players who understand like what you have in the back, what most likely you're going to bring out, what your optimal plays are. So
yeah.
After that, the Haxorus just kind of continued to go into it. We joked earlier, and Ben and Vishy joked too, that Haxorus deserves 7 KOs. It knocked out 2 of its own Pokemon. The only damage that Gengar took was from Haxorus. So Gengar came out, the EQ'd next to it, brought it down to Sash. Gengar switched it again, went for a Sledge Bomb, and then EQ'd, and then killed it. One of the key turns too was I believe they had Mr. Mime and Volcanion. The Volcanion was at like a 30%, versus the Haxorus, who had just left the Dynamax slot. And then next to, I believe it was
Indeedee first.
It was Indeedee, yeah, you're right. It was Indeedee first. Indeedee goes for a Helping Hand, thinking, we can get major damage down in general. And they go for Wide Guard on the Earthquake. Indeedee just gets knocked out. So the only thing that got taken any damage was your own Pokemon. And you're thinking to yourself, man, they just showed Wide Guard here. We're choice blocked into this Haxorus. We have Pokemon in the back to switch it out and reset. And we'll just go for Earthquake again. It's fine.
Yeah, Gengar comes in and sludge bombs the Mr. Mime, brings it down real low, and then Haxorus earthquakes and just clears the field.
Clears the whole field.
Because they were like, surely they won't earthquake again, right? No, they'll earthquake again. Yeah.
We were talking about it earlier that earthquaking next to your own Pokemon is one of those things it's so Ben and Vishy, and the only reason why it's Ben and Vishy is because it worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they do things where you're like, man, that's a scrub move, but of course it was the optimal play. And they were banned instead of Wider. And Wider would have been good. I think that would have been a really good tech there.
But it turns out Choice Band actually helped them a little bit more than the Wider did, I think. And that all happened with them bringing the wrong goddamn Haxorus. They weren't supposed to have Choice Band. They weren't supposed to have Earthquake, and yet, holy shit!
It worked out. So I think in general that was a couple of the main things I had seen about that interaction. Because then they cleared the whole field. It was basically only Rillaboom came in, and then it was Rillaboom versus Blaziken. And at that point, there was really nothing else they could do.
Austin was hoping for something there at the end of the game. He was.
I feel you, Austin. He was like, "Come on!" The Haxorus was at +1, Dynamax at full health, and they went for Heat Wave, and he's like, "Get that burn!
Yeah.
Get that burn!" He got the second one, I think. They did get one on the second.
Oh, they did get a burn. Yeah,
they got the burn on the Haxorus on the second time, but he was like, "Come on, please."
Yeah.
It's like, hey man, that's how it is sometimes.
Yeah, but that was a fun game to watch, even though Regidrago didn't come.
Yeah. Turns out that wasn't the dragon type they needed.
No. Yeah, I mean, but they do love their dragon types. Yeah. This is not the first time they've run double dragon, by the way.
No. Not at all.
And then our last game here is the Spammers versus the Patrats. This is another one of our forfeit wins. Spammers took it over the Patrats. We'll see if the Patrats stick around for the season. I don't know.
We don't know. It's tough to say. All right, so I have work, so let's fly through this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Power rankings, like how fast? Like, do you have to leave like basically now?
I told them 45 minutes, about 20 minutes ago.
Okay. All right. Porygons, they forfeited. They're staying where they are. Patrats forfeited. They're staying where they are. Pixies took a loss. They still did okay. Took a loss. They're moving down.
Yeah.
Same with the Jurors. Took a loss. Moving down. Mm-hmm. Rainbow Raiders. This is a team I'll say a little bit more about because last time they took a win off of the Drillers and we didn't move them at all. Mm-hmm. And I said last time if they keep going, if they win again, they have a good game, then we got to move them up. They had I think a better game than last week, and here they are moving up not 1 but 2 slots, and frankly 2 is a lot for this point in the season. So. Staying true to what we said before, the Raiders deserve to move up here.
Might have even moved them over the Po-Tay-Toes a little bit, but we're starting to see it's an uphill trend. We're going to start marking them as they go. It's a late game kind of surge, or late in the season kind of surge. So we don't want to overdo it, but we don't want to not give them their props either. So
right, yeah. I think moving anybody 3 spots this late in the season, there has to be some really big shit that's happening, and this doesn't quite qualify. Maybe it almost qualifies, but not quite. Then of course the Potatoes, they're kind of they're. I don't want to say they're on a losing streak because they did play a good game against the Porygons recently, but they started out fairly strong and now they're down at 3 and 5, which is not great.
Yeah.
So we had to move them down a couple spots. And really, the Spammers, they didn't play their game. They got a forfeit win. We mostly just wanted to move them up because their record's getting a little bit better, but mostly because we had to move the Potatoes down a little bit more. Next, by the way, we only have Pyukumuku on here because it was weird to see it. I don't like the decision to bring it. A lot of the time we put shit on here that did well this week. I'm just putting Pyukumuku there because what the fuck? Why?
And they let it. Hey, whatever.
6 through 11, Regigeezers, they're on a pretty serious losing streak. They started 3-0 and they're now 3-5.
Yeah.
They've taken some rough losses. They still, they do well here and there, but they've taken a lot of losses, so we had to start moving them down. The St. Louis Bulus, they're Ryan says, but why doesn't that just make the early season more important.
I can answer that.
I'd expect more movement late season since wins are occurring after folks know their teams. I mean that's fair, but things are more solidified because we have our records. Yeah, like it's you're not gonna shoot up like 5 spots when you've got like 5 losses on your records or something like that. It's harder to move people around. Like a game means more when you haven't played as many. Like one game out of 3 means a lot more than 1 game out of 10.
Yeah. Like I said, one of the things that we don't want to do is something that they do in sports all the time that they like to call "What have you done for me lately?" We don't want to get so hyper obsessed about one game. You take the whole body of work in the season. So I think as you start seeing more and more body of work, it takes more to overturn the opinion of what we've seen early in the year, because you are what you are. You can't. One of the things that they do to evaluate players is their career in total. Is you pull their worst year and you pull their best year out, because everybody's gonna have an off year, and you don't want to go too much off this aberration where they might have played out of this world. And what you have right there, that's actually what they are. That's actually the summation of their career, is when you take away their worst year, when you take away their best year. You kind of do the same thing here. You take away their worst loss, you take away their best win. What do you have? This is more or less how we try and grade it. Not so much looking at what has happened, in this time slot, but just like overall what has happened in the entirety of the season. So
it's more of a we're trying to take everything into account rather than just overreacting to one particular thing when there's other stuff that's already happened that we still need to factor in every week.
Yeah.
So number 10, Bulus are they're on more of a winning streak here. They had a little bit of a rough start. They're kind of the opposite of the Geezers. Geezers had a really good start with 3-0. Now they're down to 3-5. Bulus had a rough start, taking a few losses, and they've played a lot of good games lately. So they're moving up to Geezers, moving down to the Mudkips. Kind of like the Spammers, we're moving them up because at some point we have to start taking these forfeit wins and losses into account. They did take a win here. They have the same record as the Bulus. I think the Bulus have a little bit higher of a differential. So these two, 9 and 10, you could feasibly swap them. I think I mostly just didn't want to do that because the Mudkips did, even though it was a forfeit, they had another win added to their record again, so I didn't want to keep them where they were, and they were above the Bulus already.
Yeah.
But they are very close. If some other shit happens, the Bulus could easily move up above the Mudkips.
This is where it's really tough to evaluate teams, is when they have, like us, like the Mudkips, multiple forfeit losses, and that's really where it makes it tough.
Forfeit wins for
or
these
forfeit
two.
wins. I'm sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
But multiple forfeit wins, and it's like, where do we evaluate that compared to the Bulus, who maybe only have one? I think they literally only have one, and that was against the Porygons. So it makes it tough to evaluate that stuff. But it's like what you said. At a certain point, there becomes so many of them that come in. It's like, well, we have to grade them for something.
Right.
We can't just
we can't just leave teams where they are when they're getting more wins or losses on their record, regardless of how those wins and losses happen. Like, I try not to move teams when that happens.
That's why all of them move up one.
Right, but eventually, like, something's got to happen when those numbers start changing more and more. We can't, like, if somebody's taking a bunch of forfeit wins, like, we can't just leave them like right in the middle of the pack if they have a good record because of that, right? At some point, it has to start affecting.
It makes
something.
it weird because it's tough. That's really where the toughness is. Not even how do you grade weighted based on the early season, the beginning of the season. That's the Spammers. Okay, sorry. Not the Porygons. They took one off the forfeit win off the Spammers.
Yeah.
But that's really where it becomes very tough is when there are so many of these forfeit wins and losses, and how to actually grade those and put those into power rankings, because we literally have nothing to work with, just numbers in a column.
Right, and that's kind of the same for 7 and 8 here. The Sadistic Seniors are moving up really just because we felt we had to move the Wailords down because their record is now 4-5.
Yeah.
Because they've taken 2 forfeit losses, so we figured we have to move them down at some point. So, and it's again like it's weird when we have to move a team that like actually just had a bye instead of just like having they had a game and they just didn't play it. But like we gotta make this shit happen at some point. So. And then the Delibirds moving out of the top 5. They were number 5 previously. Took a loss, pretty serious loss against the Drillers, which is part of the only reason that we ended up moving up to 5 because again we didn't play our game here. We don't even have an MVP this week. We just got a forfeit win against the Wailords, but like we said, at some point. Those forfeits have to mean something.
Yeah.
But nothing really to say about us.
And Torchic was going to pick up 5 KOs this week. It was just really disappointing.
Yeah. I should have put Torchic up here. Shit. Number 4 doesn't click. They took a good win here. Didn't really feel like we had any reason to move them.
Yeah.
Because they took a solid win that I think we all expected them to take.
From the Pixies,
they're... I think these top 5, well, let's say top 4 are kind of they're kind of just staying where they are. Cheek Drillers took a good win. They're staying where they are mostly because the Matts also took a good win. So there was we couldn't justify moving the Matts down to put the Drillers back at number 2. And then it's all rigged, Ben. Yes. We're just getting forfeit wins all the way to finals now.
Yep.
Then we'll probably get a forfeit win there too. Yeah. So, all of these top teams had good games except for Team Pussy, who just had another bye. So
we can't even move them anywhere.
So these top 4, they've been. They've been mostly where they are for a while. There's been a little bit of movement with the Drillers and the Matts.
I like the top 4 though, because these 4 teams, they do seem like they're on a different level than the other teams. Even like us, we're at number 5. The Delibirds at 6, Seniors at 7, Wailords at 8. Like that compilation of 4 teams are all a tier below the teams on top of them.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, and they really feel like they've all been playing really consistent. I mean, so it doesn't surprise me at all that the top 4 stayed the same.
Yeah, for sure. So these are our Week 9 power rankings. We've got Portygons on the bottom. Patch Rats is at 17. Pixies moving down to 16. Jurors down to 15. Raiders with a good win, moving 2 spots up to 14. Po-Tay-Toes taking a really rough loss, moving all the way down to 13. They are now 3-5. Spammers taking a forfeit win, moving up. Geezers still on their losing streak, moving down 2. Bulus getting some redemption for the rough start that they had this season, moving up 2. Mudkips taking a forfeit win, moving up to 9. Wailords taking a forfeit loss, moving down to 8. Seniors moving up to 7 after a bye, just because we had to move the Wailords down. Delibirds moving down to 6 after a loss. We're moving up to 5 after a forfeit win. And then, of course, the top 4 staying the same. Doesn't click 4. Drillers 3, Matts 2, and Team Pussy number 1 once again. Pick'ems.
Po-Tay-Toes versus Drillers. Po-Tay-Toes beat the Drillers last year when they were the LA New Wave, but we're picking the Drillers here.
This is a very different situation.
Very different.
I don't think it's... I'd be surprised to find anybody picking the Potatoes here. That seems like an odd choice given how these two teams have been doing. Portygons and Seniors, that's pretty straightforward as well. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's hard to pick the Portygons over just about anybody. Raiders and the Mudkips. This one is a little bit less clear than I think it would have been a few weeks ago, because the Raiders have been doing. They've seemed to turn over a new leaf in the last couple weeks. But the Mudkips, they're still finalists from last season. They've had some seriously good games. They have a powerful draft.
They haven't fallen off since they got started.
Right. So I think they're still the favorite here, but this one's going to be harder to determine than it would have been a few weeks ago. And then, of course, we've got us versus the darn Heckin Delibirds.
That's going to be a good one. We choose us no matter what, no matter who we're going against. But honestly, the Delibirds, they're a good team as well. It's gonna be a good game in general. If we were being objective about it, it'd be a little bit tougher probably to choose the game, but we're not gonna do that. Team Pussy versus the Mats. This one was tough.
This is the game of the week.
Yeah, definitely. We're not. I don't want to go too much into what can cause too much trouble, but the matchup is really looking strong for Team Pussy, just in general.
I don't want to say really looking strong. I do like it on paper a little bit better for Team Pussy, but like I don't think it's super clear.
So this is a finals rematch from 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna look more like the finals rematch too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Ben and Bishy don't need me to say anything else, but the Pokemon that did well against their team 2 seasons ago is the same Pokemon that does well against their team this season. So, we do think that Team Pussy is gonna end up taking this one. But the Mats, they're good, man. It wouldn't surprise me one bit to see them pull this off. So
Yeah.
And then the Pixies versus the Spammers. We're picking the Spammers here, mainly because they've just been kind of trending upwards a little bit. They are looking really good. They seem to have found their stride from last season.
I think they've just been more consistent in the way in their play.
Mm-hmm. Their prep has always been really good, and even when they lose. It's going to be interesting to see how the Pixies are able to react to this in general. So
yeah.
And then the Patriots versus the Bulus. We're picking the Bulus. I don't even know if the Patriots are going to be able to play. And then the Jurors versus the Geezers. This one is mainly because, man, the Geezers have taken a really big time fall here. This is one of the games that they're going to need to kind of scrounge out of, and the Jurors in general have just been playing fantastic and just losing.
Yeah, I still like if you take all of the losses from both of these teams, I like the way the Jurors have been playing in those games better than the way the Geezers have been playing in theirs.
Yeah, so in general, it's going to be good. One last thing before we leave, I kind of want to say this: we're week 9 going into week 10. We have 2 weeks left of the regular season. This is really where good league mates, where good league members come out. It's not about your record. It's not about whether you're making it consistently to playoffs. Are you the team that's showing up every single week, even when you've gotten mathematically eliminated? This is really where, and I'm not a mod, but I can tell you right now, if I was a mod, these are the weeks where we look on what teams are returning and what teams aren't. Because obviously Steam has starting to die down a little bit from the beginning of the season. You're either discouraged or you're a little bit bored because we're getting burnt out. We're already really late. If you want to come back this season, and even if you're mathematically eliminated, still try and get these games in. Don't just fall off the face of the earth, or fall off the face of the earth, because we won't bring you back. I mean, just being honest,
it's a possibility. Yeah,
it's one of those things where the league in general cares more about being punctual and being on time and respecting the time of others, rather than like how good you are, how good your team may be, or whether or not you're making playoffs, or whether your win-loss ratio is high or not. Almost none of that matters. If you're going 1-10 or 1-9, and you show up every single week, and you're making sure you're in scheduling and you're getting this stuff done, and we don't have to come looking for you to find these get these games done, you're coming back next season. That's what we want.
Yeah, we're not. We don't kick people out for playing bad and losing games. So,
but yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Was this is the time where we start getting burnt out.
Yeah, it's good to reinforce that for sure.
Yeah. All right, I think that's it.
Yeah, we usually go pretty fucking long on these, but this one was a little bit shorter because we had some forfeit losses and just.
And I have work now too, so we incentivized us even more to just fly through it.
Yeah. So that'll be about it from us. Hopefully, if we have more games played this coming week in week 10, we can have a normal length power ranking stream and can go 4 hours and shoot the shit with you guys a little bit more.
Yep.
Player games will have more power ranking content. So that's about it. So good luck this week, week 10. We got 2 weeks left of the regular season, and then we go into wild card week and then top 8. So and that's going to be our season. So good luck to everybody going into the last couple of weeks, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
All right, guys. See you next week.